With all the video essays and in-depth retrospectives out there right now, is there anything even left to be said about Stanley Kubrick and his films? Nope.
Stanley Kubrick, a name which translated in Latin means very good movie man, is one of my favorite directors, and one of, if not the best directors, to ever grace the screen with movies. When looking at a Stanley Kubrick film, every aspect just seems to be perfected, from the beautiful cinematography, to the performances, to the writing, to the effects. Not to mention his movies always get the biggest stars, from Jack Nicholson, to Kirk Douglas, to Xenu Subject Number 2215. His films have become icons of not only cinema, but pop culture. One can hardly talk about sci-fi without the mention of 2001, horror without The Shining, or creepy sex cults without Eyes Wide Shut. Now, all of this being said, I could begin to go in depth on the techniques Kubrick employed in filmmaking, or the meaning and symbolism behind his films. But those topics have been covered in spades. What I want to talk about today is, was Stanley Kubrick's death a hoax, and is he still alive today? In conducting my research, I was granted access to the Stanley Kubrick Archive Library, where I soon fell down a rabbit hole of unprecedented and astounding discoveries. First, let's address the most obvious piece of evidence that is crucial in uncovering this conspiracy. All sources report Kubrick dying on March 7th, 1999, and yet his final film, Eyes Wide Shut, was released July 16th, 1999. Now, answer me this, folks. Is a dead person able to release a movie? I don't think so. And with this surefire piece of evidence, some would stop and just accept that Kubrick is still alive. But not me. I wanted to know how and where he went. In my research, I soon discovered that the key to solving this mystery was examining the events which took place on March 7th throughout history. Once you begin to take a closer look, you soon realize Kubrick hid the secret in the details this whole time. Okay, starting off, in 161 ACE, Roman Emperor Antonius Pius died. Now, Pius was Emperor of Rome for 23 years, which are now regarded as being the greatest time of peace and prosperity in the empire. This already screams of Kubrick, as his films like Dr. Strangelove and Full Metal Jacket showed his anti-war sentiments much like Pius held. Adding to this, in 321 ACE, Roman Emperor Constantine decreed Sunday as the official day of rest. One thing we know about Kubrick is that he had a well-based knowledge of Roman history, as he was the mind behind Spartacus, so he no doubt knew about this date and this decision. Keeping this date, as well as the date of Pius's death in mind, you come to the conclusion that Kubrick specifically picked this date, March 7th, to fake his death, so that only those keen enough to do the research would discover that he did. But that's not just the end of this mystery. How did he do it, and where did he go? Jumping forward in time on this date, another key event that took place was Alexander Graham Bell patenting the telephone on this very day in 1876. Now, remember this, specifically the word telephone and its prefix, because we'll be coming back to it in just a moment. Next, in 1917, the first ever jazz record on a 78 was released. Jazz being a musical style that originated in urban port cities like New York and New Orleans. And finally, in 1989, a partial eclipse of the sun took place in North America, which brings back the idea of the sun, as in Sunday, tying it back to Constantine. And what eclipses the sun? The moon. Now, connect all the dots. He chose the date specifically. The prefix tele, jazz originated in port cities, and the moon. Put it all together, and Stanley Kubrick faked his death and teleported to the moon. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, in the facts, in the data, clear as day for all of us to see. He's on the moon, and he teleported there. He's just been living up there, on the moon, away from it all. He probably got tired of making movies and the Hollywood system and being ridiculed for being different, so he left it all behind and was drove out. But we need to bring him back. He's probably so lonely up there. And just think of all the untapped ideas. It's up to us to start a movement. Hashtag Find Kubrick's Moon Mansion. Let's bring the hero of cinema home with welcoming arms. Get it trending. Spread the word. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your court-ordered therapist. Hashtag Find Kubrick's Moon Mansion. If you have any further evidence, tips, or findings, please send them to me at stanleykubrickisalive@gmail.com. Stanley Kubrick, a master of his craft, a visionary of his time, a refugee on the moon. He will never be forgotten because he never left to begin with.
Case closed.